guided in that respect.
Another question, in terms of today's geography, how many countries did you travel through, and what are the challenges with border crossings?
We just had to travel with two, from Greece to Turkey. And it probably took about 2.5 hours to get to get through customs from Greece to Turkey. So it was basically waiting in the bus. And sometimes you get sort of, you get sort of kind of fearful about, especially when they take your passport and you don't get it back for a while. So, but the traveling between the countries, except for the customs taking a while, was no big deal. Yes, Rainey.
So the Muslim guide was well informed about the site, but also the interpretation of the site?
Yes, he was.
So not only the physical, but more the spiritual aspect of it?
Yes, he was. He was very, very, very knowledgeable.
Was he devout in the sense that you'd be doing something and he'd go off and do his prayer 5 times a day?
No, he wouldn't do that.
Can I just have a little aside? We had an Ethiopian or Somali cab driver that put his rug down and prayed in our parking lot on Sunday, and I thought that was so lovely that he felt safe to do that here. Anyway,
Yeah.
that was here. Yeah, right here in our parking lot. And he did his Muslim prayer right here next to his cab.
So the Isle of Thera, which is on run up half the European territory in the Mediterranean, is that before or after it seems that everything seems to be scattered far and wide by one giant earthquake? Was it caused by Thera or?
Well, a lot of these, almost all of these cities were affected by earthquakes at one time or another. And many of these cities do not survive the earthquakes. They just chose not to build again. So the whole area is prone to a lot of earthquakes.
The way all those rocks are scattered all over the place, there must be one violent earthquake to do that to it.
Well, there is that, Eric, but also the fact just over the course of time, things get moved. Erosion takes place. And also, we have people that move them as well. There's also bounty hunters who look for specifically artifacts, and they sell them on the black market to places and that type of thing, so they remove them, unfortunately. And so not everything is in the correct situation that it's supposed to be.
So one thing is, those columns which are fluted, I always thought they were erected and then fluted in situ, so it seems very either those pieces that are lying on the ground are already fluted before they assemble them.
Right, yes. I believe you're correct. And they are actually put together in pieces.
Wow.
Yes, Jim?
Was there a place, I know that you studied and prepared for going on this journey, and was there a particular place that, you had kind of longed to see and that was really spiritually moving and rewarding for you?
I would have to probably say that Philippi was that for me. Just knowing what I know about the Philippine church and Paul's letter to the Philippine church. Actually having gone to the river and kind of noting the fact that that's probably where Paul met Lydia was particularly moving for me. And of course, they tend to commercialize all this stuff. They had a special baptismal place there that you could go down to the water and baptize and all of that. But we got a little bit away from that, and then you could actually see the meandering of the river, probably in its original setting, whatever that was. And you could just imagine, them gathering by the river, because there wasn't a synagogue in Philippi. And so many of the people would gather down by the river for their worship. And Paul knew that, and that's where he went. So Philippi was, for me, probably that religious experience. Anybody else? Yes, Bonnie.
Did the guides talk much about how they constructed the temples and the other buildings? You know, when you go to Egypt, that's a big deal, how they talk about how the pyramids were built and so on. And I noticed the temples and so on had so many columns, and it looked like if they didn't have an arch, they had to hold up the roof with lots of columns. And what kind of structures did they have to get the roof up there? Did they have scaffolding? Did they talk about that at all?
They didn't really talk about that. They mostly talked about how the city was laid out. Like, for instance, in Priene, and I forget the city planner's name, some guy who actually thought of laying streets perpendicular to each other. And what was so interesting about Priene is that he did this on a hillside. And so the streets, you know, they go one way and they intersect and go the other way, was actually set on a hillside. And they actually had, you know, some reconstructions or pictures of what they thought the city might have looked like back then, and that type of thing. But how actually they architecturally built these things, they didn't really go into that. Anybody else? Well, I want to really thank you for allowing me to do this, because this has been a joy for me. I'll be able to share with you some of the great things that I did on this trip. It's, you know, all of it, in one sense or another, has some spiritual overtones to it, only just because that, you know, this is a place where Paul walked and did his ministry. And there's a certain touchstone when you're actually there and actually be able to see, you know, some of these sites, see the places that he saw. And even though they're in ruins now, you know, you can let your mind imagine. And as you let your mind imagine, it's wonderful to be able to think that, hey, you know, this is just not biblical Sunday school stories. These are actually men and women who actually did these things, were in these places. And we are the spiritual descendants of that. So that was exciting for me. So again, thank you for allowing me to share this with you. It's been fun for me. I hope it has been for you. And maybe we can do something like this again. So we'll do it. We will do it. So thank you very much.